So today let us start this new topic SCO, which is in the news. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, right? So before looking at this, yes, ready? Any doubt? Okay, right. So before we look at this topic, let us have a little bit of theoretical background about these international relations, right? So what we say here is that whenever any country gets into some kind of a relationship with other countries, what really dominates is self-interest. As we studied with Kautilya also, ultimately it is the self-interest that dominates, that influences the relationship of a country with other countries around the world. It is ultimately the self-interest. That is the reason why, as we have mentioned repeatedly, there are neither permanent friends nor permanent enemies. There are only permanent interests. And that's the reason why these international relations are always dynamic in nature. They are always dynamic in nature. For a long period of time, if you look at this global geopolitics, for a very long period of time, this global geopolitics was dominated by ideology. These are the things which you will be studying as part of your ethics paper also. Ethics in international relations and funding. For a long period of time, this global geopolitics was dominated by ideology. So we had one group of countries called NATO countries, and another group of countries, Warsaw Pact, basically capitalist and communist countries. And of course, the third group was called NAM countries, non-aligned movement. Non-aligned movement. That means they would not be aligning with either this capitalist or communist countries. At the same time, they are maintaining what we call equidistance between both these countries. Obviously, with the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1989, with the disintegration of the Soviet Union, this also has ended. These kind of groupings are also have ended. Apart from this ideological groupings, what else are the other major groupings that we find in at the global level? We also have economic unions, wherein the objective is to benefit out of economic relationship. We have this economic unions. The objective is to benefit out of these economic relationships. For example, the countries would be retaining their independent foreign policy in terms of politics, but they would have similar economic policies. The best example is this European Union, economic union. Best example is this European Union. The countries of European Union can have different political ideologies, can have different political interests, but they converge to benefit out of this economic integration. This is another one kind of union. Next, in international relations, we also talk about this security or defense. Another group of countries you find are the security and defense. These countries are coming together to protect their common interests in terms of their security as well as defense. Still, this NATO grouping is part of the security defense union. They are coming together. If any of the members of NATO is attacked, America would enter into war. America can use nuclear weapons also if any of the NATO members are attacked. This is another kind of union that we find. Next kind of union that we find is based on geography. geography. That means these countries are coming together because of their geographical, as you can say, geographical proximity. That is what our former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee used to say, right? When it comes to international relations, we can choose our friends and we can choose our enemies, but we cannot choose our neighbors. We cannot choose our neighbors. We have to live with our neighbors, and that is where these geographical area specific unions will be formed. For example, you have SAARC countries are there. SAARC countries are there. Like those countries which share borders or which are neighborhood countries, all of them also would come together to benefit out of their geographical proximity. We also have ASEAN countries. Later it was expanded ARF, like this, SAARC countries. NAFTA is there, right? North Atlantic Free Trade Union Organization. Like this, we have geographical unions also, depending on their geographical proximity. Then you can have another union among the countries in the form of environment, ecological concerns. You can find countries coming together. Ecological, all these countries have similar ecological concerns. They will come together and they will try to have similar policies also, right? So when you look at any country in the world, we have more than around 209 countries in the world, 210 countries around. Every country is a member of what we call many multilateral organizations, and it is also a member of many bilateral treaties also. And in recent past, what we have seen is, countries are coming together more for economic and trade interests. This is the trend we can see in international relations in the recent past. Countries are coming together to benefit out of their economic and trade interest. And till very recently, it was the defense and security that was binding the countries together. So what we have seen is a radical shift. In international relations, in the trend regarding international relations, in a radical shift in terms of creating these trade unions or customs unions or countries coming together. Now it is the economic interest that really dominates all these groupings. That is what we have seen in the recent past. What is the reason why this kind of shift has taken place? What is the reason why this kind of shift has taken place from defense and security to trade and economic relationship? Because we have moved towards multilateralism in global relationships. In global geopolitics, we have moved towards multilateralism. We have moved towards what we call multilateralism, right? So during the earlier days, we had what we call bipolar politics. Bipolar politics dominated by one America, second by Russia. And we have moved towards multilateralism, especially after 2000s. After 2000s, we have moved towards this multilateralism. Why? Because for a brief period of time, if you look at global geopolitics, after the disintegration of Soviet Union, it was only unilateralism that dominated global geopolitics. It was only America, the most powerful, the richest, and the most influential country in the world. So America dominated all institutions, whether it is multilateral institutions or bilateral treaties. Everyone wants to be on the right side of America. Every country wants to be on the right side of America because it is the largest, it has the largest economy in the world. After 2000s, suddenly we have seen many of the regional powers coming up, posing a major threat to American dominance. And that is the reason why we have seen this multilateralism in global geopolitics. That is the reason why we have seen countries like Russia, which was decimated after the disintegration of Soviet Union, coming up in a more strong and powerful manner to reclaim its past glory. On the other hand, China, the country that has benefited most out of globalization, in spite of the fact that China is not a capitalist country. The irony here is that China is not a capitalist country, but it is the country that has benefited immensely out of globalization. Suddenly, it has become an economic and military superpower. Then we have these emerging economies like India, whose population had given a huge amount of advantage in terms of very exponentially growing middle class, providing a ready-made market for multinational companies of the West. And then Japan was already being an economic superpower along with Germany. So what is happening is that these countries have questioned the authority of United States of America. They have questioned the leadership of United States of America in global geopolitics, and they were able to contain United States of America also to a large extent also. So what these countries have done in order to prevent this monopoly of United States of America over global politics, geopolitics, they started also coming out with their own regional trading unions or agreements. On top of it, we also had these multilateral institutions like United Nations and World Bank and IMF. And what is the problem with these multilateral institutions? What is the basic issue with these multilateral institutions? These multilateral institutions are dominated by only Western countries, America and Western Europe. Their population is very less. Their influence is also very less. But because of their economic might, they could dominate the rest of the world. On the other hand, poor countries like Africa and Latin America simply do not have any kind of representation also. So obviously, these emerging economies, what we call them as the BRICS countries, they started questioning the economic dominance of these multilateral institutions, especially IMF and World Bank. And that is the reason why they had come out with a counter-revolution, saying that we will come out with our own institutions to end the monopoly of these multilateral institutions. That is the reason why we had another grouping called BRICS countries. These BRICS countries. So if you look at the global geopolitics, these multilateral organizations are dominated by various interests. Now it is only the economic interests that dominate all these organizations. And what we have to remember is that there is also a shift in the power, balance of power from America to the rest of the world. Still, if you happen to see the latest reports, America still contributes 25% to global GDP. 1/4 of global GDP still comes from United States of America. But China is fast catching up. If you go by the latest statistics, China's contribution to global GDP is almost 20%. Right? India's contribution to global GDP is around 3.8%. Right? So, if India and China combine together, they can equal America in the very near future also. So, we don't have to really fear about America's dominance. We can always look at the global relations from a different perspective. Earlier it was vertical, America at the top, rest of the countries are at the bottom. Now we are talking about horizontal relationships with equal partners. So the more, this is what always we say, if you are a single person, you cannot exercise any amount of power or influence. If you are a group of people, that is what we study in politics. Democracy is all about numbers. If you have the majority on your side, you can easily influence. And that is what the developing countries have realized. These developing countries have realized the fact that they can easily influence the global geopolitics if they come together as part of various groupings. And obviously, with China and India, having almost 25% of global GDP and almost more than global population is what is the population? China and India combined together. If you take the world population, it will be around 700 crores. at this point of time? 700 or yes? 700. Yes? Or is it more? Am I excluding Bihar here? Yes, it has to be 800 crores because I have excluded Bihar. It is around 800 crores, out of which 140, 140, 280 crores comes only from India and China. Include Bihar, it will be 1000 crores, right? So we are contributing almost 40% to global population, 25% to global trade also, and that is the reason why nowadays as we study in international relations, there are those who are Indo-China romantics. What do they say? 21st century should be Asian century. If you look at it, in 18th century and 19th centuries, they were of Europe. 20th century, United States of America. 17th century, Asia. 17th century, or including even 18th century also, it was only Asian century. 17th and 18th, right? They were Asian centuries. In the same manner, what Indo-China romantics would say is that India and China must come together. They should become part of as many these multilateral bodies as possible, and they should dominate the rest of the world because of their population as well as because of their economic might. So proceeding further, that is the reason why we were trying to come together in spite of having so many bilateral differences also. So one of those groupings, which had what we call geographical significance, security, relevance, and also economic, importance, that had come up with this Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Basically, this organization had come. Initially, we must remember is that when these kind of institutions come up, they initially are about defense and security relationships. Slowly, they will extend themselves to everything else: economy, trade, then human resources, and then investment, everything else. And that is how this SCO also had come up. What we must remember here is that this SCO had come up initially to question the dominance of United States of America and Western world, to question Western hegemony over global geopolitics. That is how we would start with SCO, our discussion of SCO. So why did this SCO come into existence? It had come into existence basically as a reaction to the dominance by the Western world. As I said, 1990s was the period of unipolar politics dominated by United States of America, and these Western countries also were part of this American bandwagon. They were part of American bandwagon, and they were trying to dominate. They were trying to influence global geopolitics. And that is the reason why in 1990s, when most of these third world countries were facing what we call financial crisis, these multilateral institutions, IMF and World Bank, they have imposed conditionalities which really had taken away the economic sovereignty of these countries. So to prevent this Western dominance and to question this Western hegemony, immediately we have seen coming up of so many regional groupings. One of those regional groupings is this SCO. Let us see, this SCO, it had come into existence in 1996. It had come into existence 1996, right? In 1996. Initially there were 5 countries. There were 5 countries in SCO, popularly known as Shanghai 5. Shanghai 5. 1996. Initially there were 5 countries. What are this? They were China, Kazakhstan, KAZKHSTAN. These are all the countries in what we call Eurasia. then Russia, Tajikistan, TAJI, Tajikistan, then Kyrgyzstan, CYRGYZSTAN, right? Sorry, KY, did I say CY? KY, KY, right? Right? Along with these, 5 countries, Uzbekistan also was part of this organization. Uzbekistan. They were part of they also met. Uzbekistan. All of them met in Shanghai. All of them met in Shanghai. Basically, it was a mutually security agreement. Mutually security agreement. Mutually security agreement. Along with deeper political and economic cooperation. Deeper political and economic cooperation. So it was what you call a Eurasian political, economic and security organization. Eurasian political, economic and security organization. Eurasian political, economic and security organization. Right? And what do we say now? It is the world's largest regional organization. It is the world's largest regional organization now. It's the world's largest regional organization. It has approximately 60% of area of Eurasia, Europe plus Asia combined together. 60% of area of Eurasia, 40% of world population, 40% of world population, and more than 30% of global GDP. More than 30% of global GDP. So as I said, it had come into existence in 1996. Then SCO charter was signed. SCO charter was signed in 2002. SCO charter was signed in 2002. Then its membership was also expanded to 9 states. Its membership was also expanded to 9 states, with India and Pakistan joining in 2017. India and Pakistan joining 2017, and Iran joining in 2022. Iran joining in 2022. Several countries also joined as dialogue partners. Several countries also have joined as dialogue partners. Dialogue partners. SCO also has established relationship with the United Nations. It has established relationship with the United Nations. It has established relationship with the United Nations in 2004. In 2004, it was given the status of observer in United Nations General Assembly. It was given the status of an observer. SCO was given the status of an observer in United Nations General Assembly. It also became part of CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States. It had become part of CIS in 2005, Commonwealth of Independent States. Then ASEAN in 2005, ASEAN in 2005. So that means this SCO had become part of other multilateral institutions also, right? Afghanistan, next, Afghanistan, Belarus and Mongolia were observer states. Afghanistan, Belarus and Mongolia were observer states. In 2008, the status of dialogue partner was created. The status of dialogue partner was created. Dialogue partner was created. Sri Lanka, Turkey, Cambodia, Azerbaijan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Cambodia, Azerbaijan, AZERBAIJAN, Nepal and Armenia were given the status of dialogue partner. They are given the status of dialogue. So what you have to remember here is that whenever these kind of organizations are created, initially they will start with a small membership, and later when the other countries realize the significance of these organizations, they also would want to become part of the members, permanent members of these organizations. Obviously those organizations which are already there as permanent members, they wanted to retain some of the advantages that they have. That is the reason why when they keep on expanding the membership of these organizations, this membership is given in phases. You will be given the status of an observer. You will be given the status later as a dialogue partner. From there, you can be made a full member also. India also was like that only. So when the countries around the world had realized the importance of this organization, everyone wanted to be part of this organization. As I said yesterday also we have discussed, as part of our this Prudential Linked Incentive Scheme (PLI). What we have said is that had India become part of more economic and trade unions, customs unions, that would have benefited the country far better than these schemes like PLI. Why? Because if you become part of more trade and economic unions, the customs and excise that you have to pay would come down drastically. On top of it, non-members will have to pay more customs and excise duties. So it gives you access to ready-made markets. That is the reason why most of these countries, they would like to be part of, most of the countries around the world now at this point of time would like to be part of as many economic and trade unions as possible. So those countries which had become part of these unions in the first place, they would like to retain some of their advantages. That is the reason why when it comes to taking up a new membership, this new membership is not given immediately or directly. Over a period of time, first they evaluate the pros and cons of the new membership, and they are taken into those organizations in a more phased manner. The same is the case with this SCO also. Initially, it was basically a security organization, security cooperation organization. Later, these countries also have realized the significance of economic and trade relationships, and they have expanded their scope to include economic and trade relationships. Automatically, when you talk about economic and trade relationships, it becomes much more attractive for other countries in the world also to be part of these organizations, so that they can also benefit out of these free trade unions and customs unions. And that is the reason why India always wanted to be part of this organization, not only because of economic and trade relationships, but most importantly because of security relationships. Because India always had a trouble from this part of the world, northwest, especially from Afghanistan and Pakistan and Uzbekistan and these countries, because these are the countries where we have seen a huge amount of Muslim population, and these terrorists in externally sponsored terrorism was coming mostly from these countries only. If you become part of these countries, we can easily influence the security relationship with those countries also. That is the reason why India wanted to be part of this security organization also, right? So we can stop it here for today, and we will continue on Monday, right? First we will look at the structure of this organization, and what about India's interests, and what are the challenges that a country like India faces when it becomes part of these organizations, right? So that is what we will look at, and then we can continue with our discussion on citizen charters. As usual, I will come back in yes, no definite time period.